Welcome to the Nonprofit Voice, a podcast series brought to you by NonProfit Pro, the go-to resource for nonprofit management and strategy. In each episode, we're going to sit down with leaders of nonprofit organizations, the people responsible for paving the way for our sector, along with key technology strategy partners who are transforming our industry. Here at the Nonprofit Voice, we'll have refreshing conversations in which we will all learn more about the convergence of nonprofit and technology. Be sure to follow us on social media and visit our website to find more episodes of the Nonprofit Voice. And you can download all of the Nonprofit Voice episodes on iTunes, Google Play, or Spotify. We will have all the links down below. Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the Nonprofit Voice. I'm Nhu Te, Editor-in-Chief of NonProfit Pro, and I'll be your host for today's episode. And as always, thank you so much for joining me today. So on the line with me today, we have Greg Lynch, Founder and Executive Director of Youth Volunteer Corps of Philadelphia, and Morgan Berman, Founder and CEO of MilkCrate. Welcome, you two. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here with you.
All right, awesome. Happy to hear it. Before we jump into today's topic, I want our audience to get to know you guys a little bit more. So, Greg, let's start with you. Tell us your background and how you found yourself at YVC, and of course, more about the organization itself.
Sure. So I've always been interested in community-based youth development. I think it started with my own experience with out-of-school time programming. I played a lot of sports growing up, and I really came to value, then and now reflecting back on it, just how much that experience meant to me. I think, having a chance to be a part of a community, be a part of a team, the social and emotional benefits that come with that were really important to me. And since I valued it so much in my own life, it's something I became interested in promoting and helping others to have that same experience. And so that's how I got started in nonprofit work and out of school time work. The story of how I got to YVC is actually a little interesting. I had spent my whole career to that point in Washington, D.C. and Philadelphia doing different youth development based out of school time programming. And in 2014 and 15, just prior to the 2014-15 school year, I joined a national organization that had an office in Philadelphia, and I became the regional manager. And that organization was all about promoting civic engagement and volunteer service among high school students. Just partway through that term, around wintertime, the organization called me in and said, turns out we're going to be pulling out of Philadelphia, and we're going to be closing down programming, and so we're tasking you with heading that process. And, at the time, obviously, that was not the most pleasant experience. But I think through that process, I really got to learn and hear and experience firsthand just how much that program meant to the students who were participants in it, not just because they really valued community service and enjoyed giving back, but for some of the same reasons I talked about why I valued being on sports teams. And that was, for a lot of them, this was a place to fit in, a place to belong. It was something to be a part of that they could be proud of. And it was a big part of their identity. And so that was a big loss for them. That meant a lot when that program was taken away. And since it happened in the middle of a school year, I was moved by their stories to stay on with them. And I said, at the very least, I'll stay on as a volunteer. We'll finish out this school year. And we did that. And for those 3 months, we were able to maintain a lot of our participants, our community partners, our school partners, and we built up a lot of momentum. And at that time, over that summer, the student leaders were like, hey, this is powerful. We can do this. And I just kind of followed their lead, and they wanted to continue doing our own thing here in Philly. They wanted to continue serving the community. And they wanted to continue to preserve that community that was so important to them. And so, we launched Youth Volunteer Corps of Greater Philadelphia. And, all of a sudden, here we are 5 years later, which is incredible. And, we've done over 20,000 hours of volunteer service in our community, which, I'm really proud of. But the perseverance and passion and commitment that, our youth here, our local youth had in each other, in the community, in service, really inspired me. It's why I got involved. I think it's an important lesson for everyone, just about the power of of people when they come together around a cause and a mission.
Oh yeah, definitely. Great story. And, living in Philly, I definitely see the need for that kind of organization here. And I know the kids definitely appreciate it. So that gives them something to do and it gives them a community to be a part of. So I love that. Morgan, please tell us more about you and more about MilkCrate.
Absolutely. So first, thanks for having me here. So I started MilkCrate about 7 years ago. It originally was my master's thesis. I was in graduate school for sustainable design, which was a kind of a career change for me. I had originally been working in the nonprofit space as a case manager, as a program manager, development director. I'd been doing a lot of different things in the nonprofit world. And while I loved the causes I was working on, I was finding it kind of frustrating in terms of wanting to do something that was more widespread, more systemic. And so it turns out that I kind of accidentally built a company that does that. When I was in graduate school, originally MilkCrate was designed to do something a little bit different than what it does today. But over the course of the years of developing the technology and working with different clients, we kind of stumbled upon this perfect fit where our platform could help nonprofits that were running programs, trying to reach people, doing case management work, and coordinating volunteers and all these important things that most nonprofits do. We could help them do it more effectively and more efficiently by reaching their members through their phones using mobile apps. And that MilkCrate was a really affordable, fast, fun way for nonprofits to engage the people that they're serving in the activities that make up the kind of mission and purpose of that organization. And so I found it really fulfilling to sort of accidentally, now in hindsight, solve some of the very problems that I'd been struggling with when I was working in the nonprofit world by building the technology and the company that I run today.
Fabulous. All right. So in light of everything happening in the world today, and, the emphasis that we've all been putting on, engaging supporters virtually, I wanted to get you two on the line to take a deeper dive into best practices for how to engage supporters online, creative virtual engagement tactics. We're going to talk a little bit about the impacts and challenges of COVID-19 and a little bit more. So let's get into my first question. So Morgan, I'll have you kick us off here. How can nonprofits, especially those that have a strong in-person presence, start engaging supporters online?
That's a great question. And it's something that we've actually been working with YVC to figure out as well, because they had such an in-person focused service work. And Greg and his team have come up with some really brilliant ways to engage the kids in doing things that they can do at home or digitally. So for example, some of our, like YVC, their MilkCrate app was telling kids, okay, here are the volunteer opportunities where you can go out and, go to a school or go to a park or go to a hospital. Now that those things aren't an option, the kids can now do things like do a home audit of their plastic usage or write digital cards to patients that need to be cheered up. So they're still finding ways for the kids to do things. They're just doing it from the safety of their home. We have another client, Inner City Capital Connections, that runs a program training entrepreneurs in 8 cities across the country. And that program was always a hybrid of in-person and digital content and training and connection. Now it's obviously completely online. And so the fact that they already had a mobile app in place has made it much easier for them to transition to a fully remote, fully online experience. The fact that there are so many webinars that they're now attending, it's been beneficial for them to be able to send a push notification reminder to everybody's phone saying, hey, the webinar's starting, get on it right now, through the mobile app. And the fact that they're able to track participation and progress through the users having an account in the app has also helped them kind of make sure that things are still moving forward as planned and that the program is still engaging their participants.
Awesome. Greg, Morgan mentioned a little bit what YBC is doing, but can you speak on additional engagement tactics that your organization is doing, and additionally how the organization is managing its operations virtually as well?
Yes, thank you. It's been interesting since we were kind of a grassroots startup. We actually have never had a physical location, and so The combination of in-person service and digital engagement has always been important to us. Since there's not a physical place outside of the schools or our service sites that people can go to, it was important to be able to engage them online, to keep momentum going, keep communication, collaboration happening, on all the times in between. And so that's evolved over time, our strategy for that. At first we utilized things like Facebook groups and messengers very heavily. And then over time, fewer and fewer kids were using Facebook. And so that is how we got connected to Morgan and MilkCrate. We needed a solution that was accessible to people, that would kind of stand the test of time and was easy to access, and we could get to a large number of kids. And so, the ability to go straight to their mobile phone, although, not everybody has access to a smartphone, many people do. And it seemed like a way that we could continue to engage our youth, keep some of that, momentum going in the times in between the direct service. And it actually ended up, being fortuitous in the sense that, a lot of the success that we've been able to have virtually in response to COVID is because of that, necessity that it always existed, but it allowed us to put some of those things in place. In particular, that relationship with MilkCrate, our mobile app. And we've really been able to pivot and leverage that resource and that support from the MilkCrate team to, create this experience. And it's not perfect, and we've been refining it even as we have been going through the last couple months, but it definitely helps. Separate from the app and separate from, the focus on youth engagement, which is kind of the framework I always immediately go to. We're also working to try to improve our, online and digital engagement for our other constituents. As a young organization, I think we're really doing a lot of great work, and students have great stories to tell, but not enough people know about it. And so, we're currently trying to explore, ways that we can improve our online storytelling and our movement and audience building, on different platforms. We're currently, launching a monthly donor campaign, and where, individual donors have always been a huge part of our success as a startup. And so we're trying to figure out, now how can we get, sources of funding that come in to help us with our sustainability and the longevity of the program, but at the same time use that to build an audience, and so we can share content and invite them to events and have them help us spread the message. And so it's something that we're kind of working on a few different levels with a few different audiences and constituent groups in mind. And we're a small person organization. We just got to our second staff person this year, and it's improving, and we're always looking for for help. And so if people are interested in helping with content creation, developing that communications plan, becoming a monthly donor, that's definitely something we're looking to make connections on. And so, I invite people to connect with me or visit our website to find out more about that.
Great. So, you've talked already a little bit about how you're engaging the kids that you work with, but also the constituents and supporters that you have. So I'm curious because, you've always been a more virtual organization. What are some creative ways for virtual engagement? I've seen a bunch of organizations do a lot of interesting things like gamification, live stream fundraising. So I was curious what you guys were doing.
Sure. So Morgan touched on a little bit how we're able to use the MilkCrate app to engage kids in projects that they can do at home that still support kind of our existing community partners in our existing issue areas. And just having that resource that's accessible to them, even in times like this, to know that they have access to service, but also that it's part of this larger movement and network of people that are all working on it together, I think is really important, both to keep the momentum and the mission, continue to advance the mission of the organization, but also just to help people feel like they're still a part of something, and that they're still working on something with other people, even in isolation or quarantine. I think another way we've tried to support that is through live virtual meetings, and we'll have discussions, we'll do projects together, That's another thing that we've had to adjust over time. When we first started launching virtual projects, it was before virtual school started in the school district of Philadelphia. And so the initial response was amazing. Like everybody was like wanting to connect and wanting to join. And, you know, we had these great, big, robust meetings. And then school started to set in and everybody else started to implement it. And then like, you know, virtual fatigue and Zoom fatigue and all that kind of stuff started to set in. And so, you know, we took a step back and we adjusted our frequency and our plan for what that looked like. I think an important part was trying to, you know, meet the students, you know, where they were and find out how we could best utilize the platforms and the tools available to us to serve the kids. The most exciting and unique thing that I think we're doing right now through MilkCrate and through some of our other tools is our community arcade initiative. So we actually have small groups of students from each of our school partners who are designing and creating and fabricating arcade or carnival style games. And the idea is that we're going to put all of these games together into a traveling collection, and we'll be able to take them around and support, you know, school events like the multicultural fair at Furness or the International Day at Bodine, or, you know, block parties or, you know, other community events. And we'll just be able to work with partners, help them enhance their events through, you know, fun activities. And so what the kids are doing is, you know, we're utilizing MilkCrate to you know, have a list of action items to help them walk through this process. We're meeting live in small groups with me and our program director to help coach the kids through the initial like idea and brainstorming phase to actually drawing, you know, technical plans to we actually have access to online based computer aided design software, and so the kids are drawing transferring their designs from the technical drawings of the parts into the CAD software. And then we're able to like mill the parts with this CNC machine that I have here. And you know, we're making videos to share that back with the kids. We're dry fitting the parts, saying, you know, what works, what doesn't, going through the troubleshooting process. It's been a really interesting and rewarding process because we're able to take on like this huge multi-layered long-term project. But the digital format has actually in some ways had benefits over live, because since there's almost like built-in breaks and pauses, it allows everyone to be a part of the conversation. It allows dedicated focused time for that small group of kids and volunteers. And it allows us to kind of, you know, iterate, right? And so we do something, we see how it goes, we adjust. And that's been a really neat thing. And I think we've done it this way out of necessity, but I think it's actually something that when we do construction projects like this going forward, it makes a lot of sense, you know, document the progress, pause in between, get feedback. And I think we can use digital tools even when it's not required, right? When we can get back to in-person service. And so, you know, we've really made a lot of exciting progress. We're building towards when we can get back together, having a big assembly party, essentially, where all the teams are all going to gather. They're going to put together their games, and we're going to get to play them and test them. And so that's kind of the you know, the light at the end of the tunnel that we're all working towards. But it's interesting. It's been, I think, one of the more creative and multifaceted ways that we've been able to engage our kids. And I think we've learned a lot how to serve them now and how to serve them in the future.
That's amazing. And it sounds like even though you're not able to meet them face to face in person, you're still engaging them and interacting with them in a very fun way that keeps them kind of on their toes and involved in the projects. So awesome job. I love that. Greg, what's your feedback been with the kids though? It sounds really fun. It sounds like things that, you know, I mean, me as a kid would be interested in doing.
Yeah, I think that's always, you know, kind of digital engagement and COVID aside, it's a priority of ours always. I mean, we want to do real and meaningful service that addresses needs in the community, but we also want to make sure that it's fun and it's enjoyable and it's rewarding. I mean, you know, one of our goals is to, you know, help kids fall in love with service and being civically engaged. And you know, because it's not something that has to be painful. And in fact, when it's done well, it's the opposite. It's really enjoyable and it feels good and it's fulfilling. And so I think always we're trying to figure out how we can do both, how we can serve the needs of our external community and also make sure we prioritize the needs of our internal community and preserve and promote a positive experience for our kids. And I think a really exciting thing for us now has been, watching that happen in real time. And so we have students now who have come through the program that are in college, graduating from college, and seeing all the ways that they've stayed involved in volunteerism and civic engagement, after their time, after they've graduated out of the YVC program, has been really cool. And so I think that is always a focus of ours. I mean, the three, questions I kind of come back to are, is it meaningful? Is it fun? And does it serve a community need? And that's kind of the benchmark I use for all of our projects. And I think I've tried to continue that through this virtual engagement too.
That's fantastic. You're really, your program is really instilling a philanthropic passion in kids at a young age, and it carries on as they get older. So that's great. And just one more question about your org. How many kids are you serving at this time?
So,
do you have like a ballpark?
Yeah, so for these first 5 years, we've had about 900 kids come through the program.
Wow.
Each year we have, on average, I would say 225 unique students. And so a lot of those students obviously come on a recurring basis. And our portfolio of schools has ranged. We started, when we first made the transition from Build On had 4 partner schools. It varied a little bit from year to year. We've had as many as 7. And right now we kind of have 6 solid partner schools going into next year. And a partner school is a school that we have kind of a full service program on, which includes a weekly after school component. And so every week there's a YVC meeting where we're doing service learning, we're announcing upcoming projects, doing reflection, all those team builders, all those types of things. It is also important to note though that our projects are open, right, to anybody in the age range. We serve students 11 to 18, and so we get a lot of students who don't go to a partner school. I think in all we've actually been able to partner with over 50 community organizations, so mostly nonprofits, but B Corps and even some for-profit companies that we've helped to serve and volunteer with. And we've had kids come from 44 different schools, around the region, and so our reach, especially for our capacity and our staff, is actually pretty exciting and encouraging. And just seeing what a little bit of investment can do and can achieve gives me hope for the future. And when we think about scalability and where we can take this, I think it has been really exciting.
Yeah, I love that. You guys are doing really great work. So Morgan, you've worked with a bunch of organizations. Can you share some creative ways they're engaging their constituents?
Absolutely. So one of my favorite examples is the Committee of 70. They ran a program for a couple of years before we met them called We Vote, where they basically had a web page, and they would say to people, if you want to participate in We Vote, just let us know and we'll send you some materials. And the program was a way for employers to create a culture of civic engagement in the workplace, and employees would get like information in the form of posters or flyers at work, maybe an email here and there, about volunteer opportunities at the polls, or learning about candidates, or when to vote, when to register to vote, things like that. So it's just this kind of like information, one directional kind of analog process, and which was good, but they wanted to make it even better. And so they launched the We Vote app using MilkCrate, and now each employer has their own team in the app. And so all the employees have this kind of fun, competitive experience where, as an employee of this law firm, or as an employee of this, marketing group, we are all growing and participating in the civic engagement culture of our workplace together. And the more volunteer shifts I sign up for, the more candidates I learn about, the more points I'm earning. And there's an actual leaderboard in the app where you can see which firms are doing better than others, which employees are earning more points. And all of the materials are in the palm of their hand. And every time there's like a new update or something like that, new information, new ways for the people to get involved, it shows up on their phone and it's instantly accessible. So it's just made it easier for people to participate. It's made it more fun, and it's made it more trackable. So I think that just kind of perfectly exemplifies what a MilkCrate app can do for a nonprofit, and ways to better engage your program participants, or to kind of elevate a campaign or content and information into something that can be a full-fledged program.
Awesome. And so I kind of want to talk about the same thing, but shift gears a little bit. With COVID-19 and isolation and quarantine, not being able to meet with supporters face to face, have you heard of any organizations that have experienced challenges with connecting with supporters online?
Yeah, well, we actually launched a very COVID-related app just a few weeks ago. There's this wonderful organization in Southern New Jersey. It's the Volunteer Center of South Jersey, and they were dealing with the fact that a lot of seniors couldn't get out of their homes to get groceries safely. And a lot of these seniors don't have a lot of tech savvy. It's hard to get in touch with them. And so they really needed to rely on the volunteers to do the bulk of the work, but they didn't have a system for engaging their volunteers. And what they really needed was a way to dispatch all of the grocery orders for these seniors directly to the volunteers, and then track the delivery and receipts of those groceries, so that they can make sure everything was being handled in a kind of fiscally responsible way, and that everything was being done safely, et cetera. And so we, in probably the shortest time we've ever turned an app around, launched an app for the volunteers to be able to get batch orders of seniors and their grocery requests. They can sign up for them, claim, I'm going to deliver groceries for this senior. When they drop them off, take a picture of the food at the front door, take a picture of the receipt, and all of that data gets stored in the back end so that they could more easily fulfill this very relevant and very, challenging problem in a way that was safe and trackable and easy to manage for the volunteers.
Awesome. And I think I've seen a few organizations do that for seniors because they're so high at risk, and I think it's a great thing that people are doing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Greg, I know you talked earlier about how you're engaging your kids during a time when you can't really meet with them for projects, but have you encountered any other challenges during COVID, and how have you as an organization mitigated it?
I think we have, and honestly, I think about it on a daily basis. We are committed to our mission of supporting the external community and supporting our community partners and organizations. But first and foremost, I'm committed to the health and well-being of our youth volunteers and of our young people. And I think, COVID-19 by itself, including the isolation, has been scary and has been hard, and has a real mental and emotional toll on people. And I think, just like everybody else, our kids can't pour from an empty cup. And so, a big part of our focus has, before we even get to the service and the initiatives and the projects, is trying to help make sure that our kids are in a good place. I think in addition to COVID, there's been a lot that our young people are going through. We've had to have some special events, including like town hall style meetings to try to, support and hear and advocate for, our Chinese students, our Asian students who are feeling the pain and the sting and the real life impact of some of this, hateful rhetoric and behavior that they're witnessing or experiencing around coronavirus. I think even more recently, our African American students and other minorities and their experience with the legal system, law enforcement, and also just witnessing and hearing that rhetoric. The good thing about digital online is that there is a lot of power behind it. There is a lot of accessibility to information. The bad part about it is a lot of the negative stuff also follows you around, and it's in your face all the time. I reflect when we were in school, and if you were having trouble with someone or you were getting bullied, even some of the more social stuff, like eventually you got to go home and and escape from it for a little while. I don't know that our kids today have that same opportunity, and so I'm constantly thinking about ways that we can try to support them and make sure that we can promote meaningful conversation, but also that they have a place that they can come and, they can be, supported and loved and valued and feel safe. I think that in and of itself is a really important service that YVC can provide to our internal community. And I think, I think that's been a challenge throughout this. I mean, we want to make sure that we're advancing our mission, but first and foremost, we got to take care of our most important constituents, and that's our kids. And so, we've recently launched an alumni initiative that's all about social and racial justice. And I'm, doing my best to hear the needs of our kids, to adjust, to meet them where they are. And I think that's been a challenge of just this time in general as it relates to COVID and some of the other issues that we're going through as a society. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. This year's been hard. And I think especially for our Gen Zers who are experiencing not being able to go to school and hang out with their friends and just being impacted by COVID on top of the racial injustice issues that are happening, I think it's a lot. So I think it's so important that you guys are taking the time to listen to them and support them. I'm sure they're feeling a lot right now with everything going on. 2020 has been like one thing after another, after another, after another. And it's only June, so who knows what's going to happen in the second half of the year. But I think first and foremost, just listening to them and making sure that they're heard is top of mind. All right, Greg, so you talked about how important the MilkCrate app is to your organization and how much you rely on it to communicate with the kids. What are some strategies that you use within the app that have been proven successful for your organization?
I think a big advantage for us and how we utilize the app is having kind of an all-in-one shop, right? And so, there are a lot of tools out there. There's a lot of platforms. There's a lot of ways to communicate with people. And we want to take advantage of them, but we also don't want to make it confusing for where to find info about YVC, how to access it. We don't want people to have to, have, a list of 15 different, sites and login credentials in order to get to our programming. And so one of the things that we've tried to do is really use the app as the landing page. And so we can still link internally to YouTube or to websites or, whatever we want to do. But, part of our strategy is creating that place, that singular place that people can go where they know they can find out what's going on with YVC. They can engage, with the staff, with the other students. And so that's been a big part of why I chose to go this route is, making sure we had that common gathering place, right? That central hub of activity. And I think that's been really important to us. I touched on it a little bit earlier. I think accessibility is also important. I mean, we wanted to put it in a place that as many people as possible had access to it. And it seemed like no matter what platform or what tool we chose, it wasn't gonna have the reach. It wasn't gonna have the broad appeal and the accessibility that we wanted. And so, like I mentioned before, I think being able to go, to an app where it's kind of direct to the kid's phone and they can access it and interact with it, whenever and however they want, was really important. And I think that that's been a really important part of the strategy as well.
Great. So Morgan, I'm gonna pivot to you. Let's talk about the role of mobile in virtual engagement. What are some strategies that you've heard from the organizations that you work with that have shown to be effective?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the most important thing is just knowing the data around smartphone access, because I find that actually usually surprises in a positive way the people that we're talking to about what makes sense, mobile versus not. The vast majority of Americans now have a smartphone. It's at least 70% across every demographic: age, race, gender, education, income, geography, except for 65 and older, which is like 53%. But in every other demographic, it's at least 71%. So it is the most equitable path to reaching someone, more accessible than a computer, particularly desktop-focused email. So in that sense, it's really important to know that if you're a nonprofit trying to reach a diverse audience, the best way is through their smartphone. It's not a silver bullet. It's not going to be the only way, but it's an important thing to know about your audience. In terms of mobile engagement, more specifically in the mobile content or strategies, like specific things you can do, one of the things we've also learned is that it's important to know that social media accounts are not going to be a way to reach your existing audience nearly as effectively as you might think. When you work really hard to build followers, like hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of followers, that's wonderful. But the issue is when you post something like 1 to 3% of your audience is going to see that, because social media companies have designed basically a system so that you can't reach your audience unless you pay them. That's their whole advertising business model. And so even if you're trying to reach people through their phones on a Facebook page, you're actually not going to reach most people unless you're paying to reach them. And that's why something like your own app, where you control access and you can send the push notification, and you can make sure that, you know, it's more likely to get to those people, is really important. Now, one of the things that you have to really think about hard is the strategy of what is the value for that end user? What's in it for them to engage? How are you going to make it easier for them to be engaged through their phone, through the app, than other means? So finding those opportunities to make things easier, more engaging, more fun, that's an ongoing process that we work with our clients to figure out, sometimes even years into the relationship, where we can kind of take a look and say, oh, okay, we're not getting the engagement we thought we were getting. Why? Maybe doing a survey, looking at what is being used and how can we amplify that, looking at what's not being used and kind of let go of it so we can create space for something else. There is a learning curve that goes on where you're kind of always testing the best way to reach your audience using the tools that you have at your disposal.
Great. All right, so we are toward the end of our time for today, but I like to end my podcast with very simple yet complex question. So, Greg, I'll have you go first. What's one piece of advice for nonprofits that you would give to them today?
So quickly, one that's not related necessarily to digital engagement, but just a lesson I've learned in general, is, you know, collaboration is key, and it's really important. You know, I mentioned all the different community organizations we've worked with. We have curriculum units that we reach out, and partner organizations help us to develop. They help us to develop really meaningful, you know, projects that advance their mission and help students understand the key issues. And I think my point is that when you collaborate, you know, it allows me to focus on what I'm best at, right? Which I think is engaging the students and promoting, you know, authentic youth leadership and keeping that momentum going. And allows each of those organizations to be the experts in their content area. I think that improves our programming, allows, you know, the organizations to focus on what they're best at. And I think that's really important. I think lessons learned from kind of, you know, recent experiences is, you know, there is a lot of power. If you're a youth serving program, you know, don't underestimate kind of the ability and the power of your young leaders. And I think my experience has shown me that when, you know, you're in a position to empower them and follow their lead and trust their instincts, really amazing things can happen. I think, you know, there's a really great need in society right now for, you know, positive and honest and, you know, young leadership. And I think, you know, we have a chance as nonprofits and as a community to uplift those voices and promote them. And the more I do that, the more I see and believe just how impactful and powerful it can be. And so that's definitely a piece of advice that I would give to everyone, especially youth serving nonprofits.
Fantastic. And Morgan, how about you?
So at MilkCrate, the technology and services that we provide are in many ways kind of bringing the tools and strategies of the business world into the nonprofit space. So how to think about using digital engagement, how to think about using data, how to use data to impress funders and tell the story that's going to help you keep getting funded. Those are the things that sometimes are more difficult for nonprofits when they're really focused on just kind of doing the on the ground work of serving the people they're serving, which is incredibly important. It's just that there are other skills and tools that can kind of help support that and lift it up. And so I would say that, you know, just always being open to learning from other sectors and learning from other expertise and strategies that can help you take your nonprofit from potentially a mindset of scarcity or not having enough or not having the right tools to how can we be innovative? How can we grow? How can we potentially think about our organization in a more business context? And when it comes to mobile technology in particular, I try and make it really simple for people to understand, when does it make sense for a program at a nonprofit to launch a mobile app? And we came up with this kind of XY axis image that basically, if you both need to regularly engage your constituents and you need the data of what they're doing and are they engaging and how are they engaging, that's when a mobile app makes sense. And that's what would set a mobile app far and away apart from your website, which I heard a great phrase the other day of brochureware as a way to describe a lot of nonprofit websites, where it's just a lot of like information flashing in your face of this is what we do and how we help and who we are, which is wonderful because it tells a story, but it's not helping get a job done. And often the job that a nonprofit needs to get done is engagement and tracking. And those are things that really require technology to help support in a more efficient, trackable way. And so that's what we're really excited to bring to the table. And so if you find yourself at the top right-hand corner of that XY axis of needing engagement and needing the data, that's when we can be helpful and are available to help.
I couldn't agree more. We actually did a podcast, I want to say earlier this year, maybe last year, on mobile apps. And one of the big topics that we talked about there was when there's a lot of times when nonprofits or just like companies in general create mobile apps, but the need isn't there, so it flops. So I think that's very great advice. So Greg and Morgan, it's been so fun having you guys on and an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Nonprofit Voice and sharing your insights and expertise on virtual engagement.
Thank you. This is wonderful.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for all the work that you're doing to, promote the good work of organizations, all throughout our community.
Oh, thank you. It's my pleasure. It's really, it's been fun learning because there are so many great organizations doing fantastic work out there. And it's just a blessing to be able to just be there to listen and learn. So on behalf of Nonprofit Pro, we will see you on the next episode of the Nonprofit Voice. Have a great day.